Lady Catherine, what an immense privilege. What a pleasure. Even the House of God is honoured by your ladyship's presence. Ah, Mr. Berg, good morning. Lady Catherine, I was meditating last evening. Your charming daughter was born to be a duchess, and that the most elevated rank, instead of giving her consequence, would be adorned by her.
Anne, go into the house.
Yes, Mamma.
Mr. Collins, listen to me.
Lady Catherine, I am rapt.
Mr. Collins, you must marry. A clergyman like you must marry. Choose properly. Choose a gentlewoman for my sake, and for your own, an active, useful kind of person. Not brought up high, but able to make a small income go a good way. This is my advice. Find such a woman as soon as you can. Bring her to Hunsford, and I will visit her.
Lady Catherine, as always, your advice is my command.
I hope, my dear, that you have ordered a good dinner today, because I have reason to expect an addition to our family party.
It is Mr. Bingley, I'm sure. Why, Jane, you never dropped a word of this, you sly thing. Well, I shall be extremely glad to see Mr. Bingley. Good. Oh, how unlucky. There's not a bit of fish to be got today. Lydia, ring the bell. I must speak with Hill immediately.
No, it is not Mr. Bingley. It is a person whom I never saw in the whole of my life.
Oh, tell her, Papa, tell her.
It is from my cousin, Mr. Collins, who, when I'm dead, may turn you all out of this house as soon as he pleases.
Oh, my dear, pray do not speak of that odious man. I do think it is the hardest thing in the world that your estate should be entailed away from your own children.
Mamma, the entail is hardly the fault of Mr. Collins.
The fault, Mrs. Bennet, is yours for not giving us a son.
Could anyone be so cruel?
It certainly is the most iniquitous affair, and nothing can clear Mr. Collins of the guilt of inheriting Longbourn. But if you will listen to his letter, I think perhaps you'll be a little softened by his manner of expressing himself. Hunsford, near Western, Kent. Dear Sir, the disagreement subsisting between yourself and my late honored father always gave me much uneasiness, and I have frequently wished to heal the breach. That does him credit, but wait for what follows. Having received ordination at Easter, I have been so fortunate as to be distinguished by the patronage of the Right Honourable Lady Catherine de Bourgh, whose beneficence has preferred me to the valuable rectory of this parish, where it shall be my earnest endeavour to be ready to perform those rites and ceremonies which are instituted by the Church of England.
That is very kind of him, to christen, marry, and bury his parishioners whenever required.
I flatter myself that my present overtures of goodwill are highly commendable. If the circumstance of my being next in the entail of the Longbourn estate will be kindly overlooked on your side,
It will not be overlooked on my side, I can assure him.
and will not lead you to reject the offered olive branch, I propose myself the satisfaction of waiting on you and your family on Monday the 18th at 4 o'clock.
May I compliment you, madam, on having so fine a family of daughters?
Thank you, sir.
I have heard much of their beauty, but in this instance, fame has fallen far short of the truth. I do not doubt but that you will in due time see them all well disposed of in marriage.
You are very kind, sir, I am sure. I wish with all my heart that it may be so, for else they will be destitute enough. Things are settled so oddly.
You allude, perhaps, to the entail of the estate?
Ah, sir, I do indeed. It is a grievous affair for my poor girls. Oh, not that I mean to find fault with you. Such things, I know, are all chance in this world. There's no knowing how estates will go once they come to be entailed.
But I am very sensible, madam, of the hardship to my fair cousins, and could say much on the subject. However, I'm cautious of appearing forward and precipitate. But I can assure the young ladies that I come prepared to admire them. At present, I will say no more, but perhaps when we are better acquainted...
How unfortunate it is that Mr. Collins' scruples do not prevent him attending the Netherfield ball. He has claimed the first 2 dances. I could hardly refuse him.
Never mind. No doubt Mr. Wickham will ask you to dance as well.
I hope so with all my heart. That is, if Mr. Darcy permits him to attend.
Why should Mr. Darcy forbid it?
After all he has done to Mr. Wickham, I do not think he would resist at this late stage. To treat in such a way the godson, the favorite of his father. His disposition must be dreadful.
Oh, it is difficult indeed. It is distressing. One does not know what to think.
I beg your pardon. One knows exactly what to think.
I have a good house and a very sufficient income.
You are lucky in that, sir.
A beneficent providence, allied with my patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, has blessed me in many respects, madam. But my cup of happiness has not yet overflowed.
How is that, sir?
Madam, I have no wife. My humble but commodious abode has no mistress.
Indeed, sir.
Madam, my visit to Longbourn is not entirely fortuitous. I have a plan of atonement for my fortunate position in the entail of Mr. Bennet's estate.
Indeed, sir.
A plan of amends, full of eligibility and suitableness. A plan excessively generous and disinterested on my part.
Do not entirely comprehend you, sir.
In a word, madam, I wish to marry one of your charming daughters.
Mr. Collins, I have been blessed with 4 daughters. If I could see but one of them settled, I shall have nothing left to wish for.
The greatest beauty belongs undoubtedly to Miss Bennet, as indeed is due to her on account of her seniority.
Sir, have a care. As to my youngest daughters, I cannot take it upon me to say, but I do not know of any prepossession. But my Jane, my eldest daughter, I must mention it, well, I feel it my duty to hint, is likely to be very soon engaged.
A blow, but not a mortal blow. How stands Miss Elizabeth?
Forgive me for one moment, Inspector. Wickham, I've long known you to be without scruples or sensibility. I now know you to be without shame either. You will either leave this house of your own volition, or I shall have the servants remove you by force.
You may be senior of Pemberley, Darcy, but your jurisdiction does not run as far as Hertfordshire. However, I feel the prospect of an evening spent amongst the farmers and traders of Meryton hardly merits a quarrel. You are welcome to them.
My apologies for that.
The rector of a parish must make such agreement for tithes as may be beneficial to himself without being offensive to his patron.
Look forward a great deal to dancing with Mr. Wickham.
He must write his own sermon.
Why is he not here?
He must improve his dwelling, making it as comfortable as possible.
Imagine he wished to avoid a certain gentleman, Mr. Darcy. He is plainly a young man of sensibility who would rather absent himself than embarrass his host. Poor Lizzie.
He must have attentive and conciliatory manners towards everybody.
If I am condemned to an evening spent dancing with my cousin, it's making me black and blue.
Especially those to whom he owes his preferment.
Miss Elizabeth, will you do me the honor of dancing the next dance with me?
Why, yes, Mr. Darcy. Of course. Oh, Charlotte, what has come over me? Why did I accept him? Out of my mind?
I dare say you will find him very agreeable.
Oh, heaven forbid. To find a man agreeable whom one is determined to hate. Do not wish me such an evil.
Oh, Lizzie, do not be a simpleton. Do not allow your fancy for Wickham to make you appear unpleasant in the eyes of one who is many times his superior in consequence.
Oh, I care nothing for consequence.
Miss Elizabeth?
The fair Miss Lucas, allow me to solicit the honor of your hand in this dance.
Elizabeth is honoured to be asked to dance by Mr. Darcy.
Honoured, Lady Lucas. You may choose your own notion of honour, but for my part it is Lizzie who's giving the honour to Mr. Darcy.
Do you prefer the minuet to the boulanger, Mr. Darcy?
I have no preference in the matter.
It's your turn to say something, Mr. Darcy. I talked about the dance. You ought to make some remark about the size of the room or the number of the couples.
I will agree with any observation you care to make on either subject.
That reply will do for the present. Perhaps by and by I may observe that private balls are much pleasanter than public ones. And now, may we be silent?
You talk by rule, then, while you are dancing?
Sometimes one must talk a little, you know. It would look odd to be entirely silent.
Are you consulting your own feelings in the present case, or do you imagine that you are gratifying mine?
Both. I have always seen a great similarity in the turn of our mind. We are each unwilling to speak unless we expect to say something that will amaze the whole room.
This is no striking resemblance to your character, I'm sure. How near it may be to mine, I cannot pretend to say. You think it a faithful portrait, undoubtedly.
You must not ask me to pass judgment on my own performance.
Within 3 or 4 months at the latest, I expect Jane to be mistress of Netherfield.
Indeed? Has he made her an offer?
Oh, not in terms. Not yet. But he has made his intentions perfectly plain. Such a charming man. So rich. Living only 3 miles from Longbourn. Oh,
The presence of the Loamshire must have added much sparkle to your Hertfordshire society.
Oh, yes, indeed. We would be very dull without them. We have recently formed a new acquaintance within the regiment who is, so I understand, known to you. Mr. George Wickham.
Mr. Wickham is blessed with such happy manners as may ensure his making friends. Whether he is equally capable of retaining them is less certain.
He's been so unlucky as to lose your friendship, and in the manner which he is likely to suffer from all his life.
My dear sir, such very superior dancing is not often seen. However, allow me to remark that your fair partner did not disgrace you. But let me not interfere, sir. You will not thank me for retaining you from the bewitching converse of the young lady whose bright eyes are also upbraiding me.
Sir William could hardly have interrupted any 2 people in the room who had less to say to each other. What we are to talk of next, I cannot imagine.
What think you of books?
Books? Oh, no, I'm sure we never read the same books, or not with the same feelings.
I'm sorry you think so. But if that be the case, we can compare our different opinions.
No, I cannot talk of books in a ballroom.
The present always occupies you in such cases, does it?
Yes, always. I remember once hearing you say, Mr. Darcy, that you hardly ever forgave, that your resentment, once created, was unappeasable. You are particularly cautious, I suppose, as to its being created.
I am.
And never allow yourself to be blinded by prejudice?
I hope not.
It is particularly incumbent on those who never change their opinion to be sure of judging properly at first.
May I ask to what these questions tend?
I'm trying to make your character out.
And what is your success?
I do not get on at all. I hear such varying reports of you as to puzzle me exceedingly.
and his sisters are so fond of Jane. They desire the connection just as much as I do.
Are you quite certain on that point?
My dear sir, I've just heard that you are the nephew of Lady Catherine. I assure you, sir, she was well yesterday fortnight. I entreat your pardon for not presenting myself to you sooner.
Lizzie, I'm so happy. I never met such amiability, such sensibility, such sweetness of temper. Do you think he likes me a little?
I suspect that he likes you very much indeed. You silly girl.
Excuse me, Miss Elizabeth. Miss Bennet, I cannot spare you another moment.
Well, I wish Jane success with all my heart. If she were married to him tomorrow...
Come, Charlotte. This is hardly the time to talk of marriage. Jane has known him only a fortnight. She knows very little of his character, nor he of hers.
Well, that is beside the point. Happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance. If the dispositions of the parties are well known beforehand, it does not advance their felicity in the least. They always continue to grow sufficiently unlike afterwards to have their share of vexation. It is better to know as little as possible of the defects of the person with whom you are to pass your life.
Oh, Charlotte, you make me laugh. But it is not sound, and you know it is not sound, and that you would never act in that way yourself.
Ah, there you are. But of course, this would be such a splendid thing for my younger girls, Jane's marrying so well. This must throw them in the way of other rich men. Though one can only hope they are none of them so disagreeable as Mr. Darcy.
Madam, for heaven's sake, speak low. You will never recommend yourself to Mr. Bingley by offending Mr. Darcy.
What is Mr. Darcy to me, pray, that I should be afraid of him? I'm sure we owe him no such particular civility as to be obliged to say nothing he may not like to hear.
Oh, Charlotte, everything conspires to vex me this evening. Would that it would end.
My fair cousin, would you do me the honor of dancing with me once more?
No, thank you, sir. I'm a little tired. Why do you not stand up with another young lady, with Miss Lucas?
Oh, thank you, sir, but I have danced enough.
I will introduce you to any young lady in the room.
My dear Miss Elizabeth, dancing is not for me the principal object of this evening's activities. My chief aim is, by delicate attentions, to recommend myself to you. And with that object in view, I shall make a point of remaining close to you for the rest of the evening.
Yes, Lady Lucas, my second daughter settled. A little less brilliantly than Jane, but settled. Settled.
Madam, may I hope that you will use your influence with your fair daughter, Elizabeth, when I solicit for the honor of a private audience with her in the course of the morning?
Oh, dear, yes, naturally. I'm sure Lizzie will be very happy. I'm sure she can have no objection. Come, Kitty, I want you upstairs.
Dear ma'am, do not go. I beg you will not go. Mr. Collins must excuse me. He can have nothing to say to me that anyone need not hear. I am going away myself.
No, nonsense, Lizzie. I desire you stay where you are. Lizzie, I insist upon your staying and hearing Mr. Collins.
Believe me, my dear Miss Elizabeth, that your modesty, so far from doing you any disservice, rather adds to your other perfections. Almost as soon as I entered the house, I singled you out as the companion of my future life. But before I'm run away with by my feelings on the subject, perhaps it will be as well for me to state my reasons for marrying, and moreover for coming into Hertfordshire with the design of selecting a wife, which I certainly did. My reasons for marrying are, first, that I think it a right thing that every clergyman in easy circumstances, like myself, should set the example of matrimony in his parish. Secondly, that I'm convinced it will add very greatly to my happiness. And thirdly, which perhaps I ought to have mentioned earlier, that it is the particular advice and recommendation of the very noble lady whom I have the honor of calling patroness, Lady
Catherine de Bourgh.
Yes. You will find her manners beyond anything I can describe. And your wit and vivacity must, I think, be acceptable to her, especially when tempered with the silence and respect which her rank will inevitably excite. As I am to inherit this estate after the death of your honored father, who, however, may live many years longer,
So I devoutly hope, sir.
I deemed it proper to choose a wife from among his daughters, that the loss to them might be as little as possible when the melancholy event takes place.
How thoughtful.
And now, nothing remains but for me to assure you in the most animated language of the violence of my affection.
You are too hasty, sir. I am very sensible of the honor of your proposals, but it is impossible for me to do otherwise than refuse them.
I understand that it is usual for young ladies to reject the addresses of the man whom they secretly mean to accept. I'm therefore by no means disturbed by what you've just said.
Upon my word, Mr. Collins, I am perfectly serious in my refusal. You could not make me happy, and I am convinced that I am the last woman in the world to make you so. Nay, were your friend Lady Catherine to know me, I am persuaded that she would find me in every respect ill-qualified for the situation.
Were it certain that Lady Catherine would think so, But I cannot at all imagine that her ladyship would disapprove of you. I shall speak to her in the highest possible terms of your modesty and economy and other amiable qualifications.
Indeed, Mr. Collins, all praise of me will be unnecessary. In making me the offer, you must have satisfied the delicacy of your feelings with regard to my family. And you may now take possession of the Longbourn estate whenever it falls without any feeling of self-reproach.
Well, Lizzie? Wait for me there. Depend upon it, Mr. Collins, Lizzie shall be brought to reason. She's a very headstrong, foolish girl, and does not always know her own interests. But I will make her know it.
Pardon me for interrupting you, madam, but if she really is headstrong and foolish, I know not whether she would altogether be a very desirable wife for a man in my situation.
Sir, you quite misunderstand me. Lizzie's only headstrong in matters such as these. In everything else, she's as good a natured little girl as ever lived. Now, I will go directly to Mr. Bennet, and we shall very soon settle it with her, I'm sure. Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Oh, Mr. Bennet, we are all in an uproar. You must make Lizzie marry Mr. Collins. She vows she will not have him. And if you do not make haste, he will change his mind and not have her.
I have not the pleasure of understanding you. Of what are you talking?
Of Lizzie and Mr. Collins. Lizzie vows she will not marry him.
And what am I to do in the affair? It seems a hopeless business.
Speak to her yourself.
Well, child, is it true? Has Mr. Collins made you an offer which you have refused?
Yes, sir.
Very well, then we come to the point. Your mother insists on your accepting it. Is this not so, Mrs. Bennet?
Yes, or I will never see her again.
An unhappy alternative is before you, Elizabeth. From this day, you must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins. And I will never see you again if you do.